Hi there, and welcome to this day in history for October 27th. October 27th is the 300th day of the year in the Gregorian calendar, 301st in leap years, with 65 days remaining to the end of the year. Today's word is starstruck. Starstruck is an adjective that means particularly taken with celebrities, such as movie stars or music performers, or even someone knowledgeable or influential in a field of knowledge or study. For example, she stared at him in starstruck awe. Or, I know she's famous, but try not to act all starstruck when you meet her. I know we were a bit starstruck when we got to meet a certain author who wrote extensively in a field that we're interested in at the Bowers household. I'm happy to report that author was just as regular a guy as you'd ever care to meet, which deepened our fandom even further. Starstruck is kind of related to smitten as an adjective, one meaning of which is deeply affected with or struck by strong feelings of attraction, affection, or infatuation. Except that in the case of starstruck, one is smitten by the star. First known use of the word starstruck is 1938. Starstruck. Today's word starstruck was suggested by viewer Easy9 over on Odyssey. Thank you, Easy9. And if you have a word you'd like us to explore in this Word of the Day segment, drop it in the comments, wherever you're watching from, and we'll take a look at it. And with that, October 27th in the year 312 is the date given that Constantine is said to have received his famous vision of the cross. There are at least a couple of versions of the event, but the gist of it seems to be that he and his men were getting ready for battle, and he, Constantine, looked up to the sun and saw a cross of light above it with a message that said something to the effect of, "Through this sign you shall conquer." He wondered about that, and then that night he had a dream in which Christ explained to him that he should use this sign against his enemies. It's my understanding that the symbol that Constantine used was the Kairos sign, which looks like a capital P with an X on it, where the vertical stroke of the P intersects with the X. Now, I don't know for sure about that message that said, "Through this sign you shall conquer," but I can tell you that some of the sundog formations that we occasionally see can be pretty dramatic in appearance. Sometimes also called a mock sun or parhelion, not to be confused with perihelion. A parhelion or sundog is an atmospheric optical phenomenon that typically consists of bright spots and partial or full halos. This visual effect is caused by the refraction of sunlight by ice crystals in the atmosphere. Now, I'm not saying Constantine didn't see what he saw, I'm just saying it could have been a fortuitous sundog. Whatever it was, coupled with the dream he had, it gave him enough confidence to go forward and change history. This is the birthday of 26th President of the United States, Theodore Roosevelt, born October 27, 1858. For as robust and active as he was, it's a little surprising to learn that he had been a sickly child with asthma growing up. He was occasionally plagued with asthmatic breathing problems throughout the rest of his life, but he embraced a strenuous lifestyle to overcome those health issues, and I'd say it appears to have worked pretty well. He died in his sleep in 1919 at the age of 60, and Woodrow Wilson's Vice President Thomas R. Marshall said that death had to take Roosevelt sleeping, for if he had been awake, there would have been a fight. I think that sounds about right. This is the birthday of Alfred Paul Murrah, born October 27, 1904. If that name tickles a sense of familiarity in the back of your mind, you might be thinking of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City that was named after him. He was born in Tishomingo, which was in Indian Territory at the time, and is now the county seat of Johnson County in the southern part of Oklahoma. Mr. Murrah studied law and became a lawyer and practiced law in Oklahoma City and Seminole there in Oklahoma. He was nominated for and confirmed as a district court judge in 1937, where he served for 3 years, before being elevated to the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals in 1940. He continued to serve in one capacity or another until his death in 1975 at the age of 71. The Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building was built in the mid-70s, opened in March of 1977, and housed office space for the Social Security Administration, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, the Secret Service, the Drug Enforcement Administration, also known as DEA, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, also known as ATF, some military recruiting offices, and a few other things, including a daycare center. That said, you may have heard of the bombing of the Murrah building carried out by Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols in 1995. We've certainly talked about it here more than once. 168 killed, hundreds more injured, but did you know that there was also a previous plot to bomb the Murrah building? Back in 1983, a Christian militia group plotted to bomb the building, only instead of simple explosives, they were planning to use rockets of some sort. One of those went off in a member's hands, and they took it as a divine intervention and called off the attack. Interesting, okay, but wait till you hear this. One of the members of that group was convicted of a murder in an unrelated case up in Arkansas and was executed for that murder conviction on April 19th, 1995, same day as the Murrah bombing. Isn't that bizarre? After the bombing, they opted not to rebuild that federal building, but built the Oklahoma City National Memorial in its place instead. If you ever find yourself in Oklahoma City, you ought to think about giving yourself time to go see that memorial where once stood a federal office building named after Alfred P. Murrah. Now here's another day that I talked a lot about a few things, so if you'd like to see some other things I've mentioned for October 27th in the past, I'll leave a link for you. And remember that in the next couple days over the weekend, we're going to have reruns for October 28 and 29. We'll be back with another fresh new episode on Monday. Today's song is I Just Called to Say I Love You by Stevie Wonder. This sweet ballad was written, performed, and produced by Stevie Wonder. Released in 1984, it was released as the lead single from the soundtrack for a movie called The Woman in Red. Some of Wonder's former writing partners claimed that they had written the song years earlier, and the case went to court. The jury sided with Stevie Wonder. I Just Called to Say I Love You hit number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in October of 1984, where we find it beginning the third of 3 weeks in that position. I Just Called to Say I Love You by Stevie Wonder. Link in the description. And I think that's going to do it for us today. Thank you so much for watching. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share this video with a link in your email, messaging, or social media. If you enjoy this series, you can check out the playlist that contains these videos. I'll put a link to that in the description. That playlist lives on YouTube, so for other platforms, I'll include a link to my blog page that's called No Really. You can also find me on Rumble, BitChute, and Odyssey. All those links in that description. Alrighty, that's all I can think of right now. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time. This is the birthday.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
I wasn't talking to you. Okay. Cacophony is a sound. Cacophony is a noun that... I'm going to have to look that up. Yeah, that's what it is. Okay. Alrighty. You got to read it the right way. Let's start over. It's 8 o'clock, so all of the reminders are going to be dinging. I forgot to turn those off. Okay, stop it. It's 8 o'clock. Don't alienate people who can be helpful to you. flinging happiness all over the place. Alrighty, back to work. I think we got it this time.